Okay, hello everybody. How's it going? Great to be here with you all today. I just want to welcome you to the webinar. This is going to be about us driving certainty in uncertain times with paid and organic search. Now, before we get started, I have the honor of introducing our two awesome guests here. My name is Nabuki Fujioka. I'm a product marketing manager here at Conductor. And with us from Athena, we have Gary Galloway, Senior Director of Product Marketing. Gary, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm happy to, Nabuki, and thanks, Pat, for joining on this webinar. I'm really excited to do this with Conductor, and I've been over at Athena for more than a year now and heading up the product marketing team. And Athena is a search intelligence platform, really helping brands and agencies and marketers dominate their competitive landscape. So what better partner to speak with on that than Conductor? So thanks again for having me.
Yeah, and I think our other speaker really does not require too much introduction. You already may know him, but Pat Reinhardt, our very own Vice President of Customer Success. Pat?
Hey, everyone. Good to see everyone. Really excited to join this webinar. I've been a big fan of Athena for a while. Been talking to them, excited about a partnership that we're expanding right now, and really looking forward to jumping into this webinar. So I think we should get on and do it.
Awesome. Let's get into this agenda. Yeah, so before we jump into the presentation, I'd just like to walk you all through what we will be covering. Starting from the top, we'll be going through how you make the most out of your marketing budget. Then we'll move into how you really get to dominating those product categories in both paid and organic, and that synergy there. And then how do you adapt that content? How do you scale that strategy that you have within your organization? And we'll close up with how paid and organic teams can work together rather than being siloed. And also, we kind of want to format this in more of like a conversational, a riffing type of thing in a very organic way. And so if you have any questions, please just drop them into the chat and we'll get to them as soon as we can. Just level setting for everybody here. We just want to cover a topic that you all may know really well. But Gary, would you like to tell us all what paid search is about?
Yeah, I used to present this slide with a screenshot of the first page of Google search results, because a lot of people just didn't know the difference between paid and organic. I think at this point we certainly do know that. One of the things I like to really level set is why Google. I've been doing this fortunately for 15, 16 years, and there's about 100,000 Google searches every second in the world. And it really is an amazing topic, search. I just love search because it really captures consumer intent extremely well. And Google's most recent earnings, they posted 142 billion, that's billion with a B, which represents about 60% of all the global search ad market. So Google is, I think, here to stay. Search terms are here to stay. So I just like to level set a little bit around paid search with that. So I appreciate you letting me do that.
Yeah, definitely. And, just throwing a quick statistic out there, right? With over 90% of traffic being directed to that first page on the SERP in Google, and almost 30% of that traffic clicking into the first link, I think it's really safe to say that it's important to learn how you earn that first spot, right? So really, really happy to share this knowledge with you all. Now, just a nice harmonious moment for all to meditate around a quote, right? When a brand name appears in both paid and organic search results, the brand attracted about 92% of total clicks. Now, let's jump right into this webinar.
Yeah, so I'll take these first couple of bullet points, if that's okay. Really just talking a lot about, Nabuki just said, meditate. I like the word harmony, organic and paid search harmony. Certainly paid search campaigns are built and organized to drive clicks to a brand's or a company's website. But as we all know, we don't have a bottomless budget. We've got to be very mindful of our budget and our spend, especially in times like now. And paid and organic, I've seen them work best when they're really prioritized together. The third bullet point is one I want to share a quick story. We've worked with a UK train operator called Avanti West, and they are very intentional about allocating branded terms and generic terms, to the fact that they were able to save approximately 33% of their monthly paid search spend by identifying what Athena calls lone rangers. It's essentially where they're the only ones bidding on a branded term, and they also have that organic top spot. So they were able to turn that off, and then they could have kept that savings and put it in their pocket. Or what they did is they reallocated it to more generic terms, and they were very strategic. They identified their 5 most profitable routes, and they put generic terms around those routes, and they added negative keywords to routes where they just didn't have trains running. And they did this during the global shutdown and the pandemic. And travel, as you know, was not much of a thing during the global pandemic. So it's a really cool success story that Avanti West did by really having that paid and organic harmony running. So that was a really cool story. I'll let Pat cover off on those next 2 points.
Yeah, and I think harmony is a really good word, right, Gary? And I think like one of the biggest mistakes that companies make is that they separate the paid team and the organic team, right? The SEO team is working in a silo over here. The paid team is working in a silo over here, and no one's talking to one another, right? I see this day in and day out with all, Conductor has, hundreds of customers, and I see this day in and day out. And something that, a really easy way that you can kind of bring all this together, because even going back to that last slide with 92%, when if they showed up in both paid and organic, to boil it down to its simplest form, right? What is that? It's who's taking up the most real estate, right? And one piece of real estate you can bid on, and one piece of real estate you have to earn, right? And when you can get those two working with one another, then there's some magic that really happens. And when you use that, and like for example, like when I was actually a customer of Conductors, for 5 years before I came here 7 years ago. God, I've been here a long time. And what I used to use Conductor for was the paid and organic synergy piece of product, where I would say, hey, listen, like we are ranking highly here, right? But we are also bidding highly here, right? And I worked at an agency at the time, and once I got into the platform, a month later, I started to send these reports to my paid team saying, hey, y'all can probably start bidding down on these ones that we are ranking like number 1 and 2 and 3 for, and we probably are overpaying for these, and we'll probably get the same results. And of course, I got the I don't know about that. But I was like, just try it, please, just try it. And you know what happened? Magic happened, right? They said, you know what, you were actually right on 70% of those terms. When we bid down, we actually were fine and got the same conversion. And from that standpoint, that was a really big, kind of like light bulb moment for a lot of the companies that we were working with, and also our company as well, as because we were the agency serving the customer. But this is true of anyone running a paid and organic campaign, which I hope that everyone is running both, if it makes sense and if you're allowed to. So that's a really big thing to consider as well. It's like you should use search intelligence to inform your paid efforts, right? Because they're one and the same. You're just using the keywords in 2 different ways. And one way you're bidding on the keywords, and the other way you're earning those keywords, right? And that all really comes down to education on both sides, right? Because a lot of times SEO folks are like, and I've been in SEO for 20 years, so I've been up and down a million times. So it's like, the paid folks, they're just churning and burning stuff. They're just kicking it this way. They got their day to day. They have to be on top of stuff day to day. Whereas on the organic side, let's face it, what are we doing? We're placing bets, and we're seeing if those bets pay off. And the ones that don't pay off, we make different bets. But that happens over time. But the thing that you can get a lot of power out of is if both sides of the coin understand one another and work with one another. Again, like I said before, you can make some pretty cool magic happen, which I have experienced many times over in my career. So if you're not doing that today, I would do that today after this webinar and go try to put that into practice. And then, when it comes down to it, right? Like, and just taking the first two boxes here, right? Like using organic influence, this kind of goes back to what I was saying, right? Like you should be able to use your presence, right? And say, hey, listen, I own these keywords, right? And it's like, okay, if I own these keywords and I feel they're stable, and you can use products to tell you like, hey, listen, like we have a consistent rank of 1 to 3. Let's just say that's it, right? And you can use that to go back to the paid folks and say, hey, listen, like since we have that, you can save money here, and then you could use that money to reinvest elsewhere, right? And that's the big win here. Like you can use money that you've saved on the keywords that you were ranking highly organically on and that you've bid down on, and you can use that savings to bid on keywords that are not performing well, right? And then what happens there is like, hey, listen, Now you're actually using the paid information back to inform the organic strategy, right? Because it's like, hey, we're actually, we're not performing well on these organic terms, and we're paying a lot of money for them because their CPCs are super high. We need the organic folks to focus more on these keywords to get them up because they're high converters for us, right? So we can't just bid down on them. And then that kind of changes direction for the organic team. They come in, they're like, holy crap, okay, we understand that. And then it becomes a flywheel, right? One drives the other. And there's a lot of, and I hate the word synergy, but that's really what it is, between those two teams. And those are the companies that I see that are the most successful ones, where there's an open communication. There's kind of a flywheel where organic can drive paid strategies and paid can drive organic strategies, and everyone's working together, right? And then, of course, when it comes to search, you want to be found before your competitors in that standpoint. And when you get that system into place, that's how you win. That's how you win in both paid and organic. They shouldn't be siloed events, because then you can get on top of your competitors and start to chip away at market share that they may own and become the monster in the room. And I'll pass it back over to Gary for the other two.
Yeah, I love that. I don't love the word synergy, kind of like you, but it definitely fits here, where paid and the organic team need to be really working in lockstep. And the interesting thing about the paid search world, the Google auction is an open auction. Anyone can go in there and bid on specific keywords, prioritize those keywords, and that sort of thing. So it's really critical to really optimize your campaigns around specific business objectives. This first bullet point here around campaign optimization, I like to use real world narratives, and we work with a lot of global brands. And L'Oreal was doing a very interesting experiment. They had a men's fragrance. They wanted to test a different bidding strategy. And as you probably all know by now, Google's got a lot of different automations around smart bidding. They're rolling out Performance Max. And one of the biggest complaints a lot of our customers have around these automations is really lack of control and lack of insights that they're just not getting from kind of that black box of the automation. So what L'Oreal did is they basically were experimenting with their bidding strategy. They were selling a lot of stuff online. They had Google shopping ads, and they were really optimizing for return on ad spend. They wanted to really experiment with flipping that to impression share bidding during a key gifting time. So think of November, December is when people are shopping for, say, men's fragrance. And as a result, they were able to increase their market share for this specific men's fragrance by 116%. So it was a really cool experiment. Now they're starting to use that. And again, this is Google shopping ads where you're really trying to drive stuff through the cart, but they flipped it to impression share. And now they're going to use this kind of recipe for new product launches and new product lines. The second thing I want to talk about, where synergy is extremely important, is around brand infringements. So this last point on this slide is really around this company we work with out of the UK. It's called Sage, and they're really responsible for managing a lot of accounting, finance, payroll software. They have multiple vendor partners who are in the Google auction bidding on things, and they identified 89,000 infringements in the first 12 months by using Athena. And just within 5 days alone, Sage was able to reduce their cost per click by 75% for specific brand terms. And they saw a 33% reduction in impression share for their vendors. So it's really just being synergistic, not only with the paid and organic team, but it's also being synergistic with your vendor partners and just really managing that and being mindful of all those different moving parts. So that was a long story. I told a very short story long, so I apologize.
Cool. So, from there, and, it really comes down to, like adapting, to new opportunities, right? And then you can use that to scale your content strategy. So one of these is, from an algorithm standpoint, which, obviously, typically, you're really talking about SEO there, right? But really from that, having an effective like paid campaign, that's a great support system for when something goes wrong organically, right? We always say for example, let's say we just had the last core update that really shook up a lot of really shook up one of the rankings, probably one of the more powerful ones that we've seen over the last couple of years, probably since the Medic update. And from that standpoint, a lot of folks that came to me, they were like, hey, Pat, Like we saw like a 20% drop in rankings, and we saw a 30% drop in traffic. What do we do? The first thing I always say is like redirect more dollars to your paid, to the keywords that were impacted on the paid side, and let them be your crutch for now, right? And that sometimes that has to happen because, as you know, paid is way more controlled than organic, right? Because what do I always say? That Google's a giant floating math equation out in space that runs itself, and we have no control over it, right? So every once in a while, it rocks the boat, and when it rocks the boat, what do you need? You need someone to come, and you need the Coast Guard to come every once in a while and bail you out. So from that standpoint, that's how I kind of view it from an algorithm standpoint. There, paid can be the safeguard for organic, right? When things don't go as well, because there's a lot less control over organic than there is paid, and you can easily shift budget from A to B. Where in this organic, it could take you months, if not, it could take you a very long time, to come back from getting hit. Hopefully you're not doing anything on the organic side that would prompt being hit, with a precipitous drop after an algorithm update. But let's all face it, that's the reality of the world we live in. Google's more volatile than ever, to the point that like SEMrush even updated their volatility tracker because it was so volatile all the time. So we're actually measuring in a different way now. That's how volatile Google has become. And from there, it all goes down to testing and optimization, right? Like SEO data, search intelligence, whatever you want to call it, that can inform so many things. All different parts of your organization can be informed by search intelligence. Not just paid, but we're talking about paid here, Dave. But like search can like influence every part of your business if you allow it to. And from a paid perspective, you could really use that to test different creatives and different messagings and different approaches and things like that. SEO is all, and paid, like search is all about testing, right? It's all about testing. And the way that these two work together, which I'm not going to use synergy anymore. I'm mad I use that term. I'm just going to say togetherness, which is probably stupid, but I'm going to say it anyway. The togetherness of those two, really shines when they work together, which goes back to my previous points. And I'll pass it over to Gary for the next two.
Thank you for flipping synergy to togetherness. And that's a perfect segue into my two top bullet points around search term opportunity. I think this is really where the togetherness, the harmony, the synergy of the paid and the organic team can really shine. Again, just going back to a real world example, Vodafone had a big product launch around the Samsung phone. And for those who work in that space, how competitive and what a tight window that is for phone launches. So they were working with Samsung, and they identified 27 search term opportunities that the two main competitors simply weren't using. Now, I think Vodafone had set up some sort of automated bidding, and they were able to flip for those 27 keywords to manual bidding and they wanted to pay a higher cost per click for those specific search terms because they are high priority search terms. And the other two competitors just simply weren't using them. So that alone, and just having that search term opportunity, really allowed for Vodafone and Samsung to have a successful phone launch during probably a 2-week window where every day literally counts. And a lot of times people just are discovering these opportunities, and it's usually too late, especially with something like a phone launch. The last bullet point on this slide, it's something that was really interesting that happened and emerged out of COVID and the related shutdown. What we saw with a lot of the U.S. retailers, think of Target, Walmart, and that sort of thing, we saw a lot of really interesting consumer behavior change during the COVID time and the related shutdown, especially over here in the U.S. We saw a lot of curbside pickup emerge. The really horrible acronym BOBUS emerged, which is Buy Online, Pick Up in Store. So we have a U.S. retailer here in the U.S., and they identified that 4 of their competitors, 75% of all their paid ads included free shipping and curbside pickup. So they were able to basically monitor and reveal their competitive landscape to see what their competitors were using from an ad copy perspective. And this is the really big opportunity, like Pat mentioned, with the togetherness of the paid and organic team, because it's a constant test. Again, 100,000 Google searches are floating through there every second. And what an amazing opportunity to just test and add those different strategies and those keywords to your campaign. So I'll stop there on that bullet point, but that's a very important thing to take away from this.
Yeah, and it comes back down to, and we've talked about a lot here, Jen. We definitely want to leave time for some questions at the end, so I won't be long-winded here. But paid and organic teams working together, togetherness. I've coined a new term. Watch out! In the next conference I speak at, I'm gonna talk about this. But really, what are we talking about here? Like, again, it really comes down to using the data, like the search data, to inform like one another's campaigns, but also it comes down to working closely together, right? And what are we trying to do there? Like, you can do research for paid campaigns that can, that's how SEO can inform that, right? You can strategically reduce spend, which I talked about. It has been a use case for me over and over, year after year, with many customers, to increase your organic visibility, to help reduce spend on the paid side and invest elsewhere in new areas, right? And areas that are struggling, right? But again, on the other side, like making up for low organic visibility, like I said before, paid search can be the buoy, it could be the life preserver, and can be, it can help, float the organic campaign if something happens, right? And from that standpoint, it also allows you to understand, like, internally what's happening everywhere. When those two teams are working together, that company has way more wisdom and way more togetherness, than other companies, because they understand what's happening on both sides. A lot of times those things are very, very siloed, and everyone, like, one team really understands the organic, one really understands the paid landscape, but they don't talk to one another. That's very common, right? And then you can also improve content based on paid data, because you can use highly converting terms, or something that maybe you don't have a lot of article content around, but maybe you have a product page around, or a category page. But this can actually have, hey, this is a high converter for us. We should be doing a lot of video around this product or these keywords. We should be doing a lot more articles around these keywords, or around this. And that's a way that you can grow the organic campaign using the paid data, right? And ultimately resolving competition between pages. Like, cannibalization is something that plagues everybody. It's not like typically that really, a lot of that happens on the organic side, but paid can actually step in and help alleviate that. If you have two pages that are competing with one another, but maybe they're selling two different products, right? You could create a paid landing page for one of the products that maybe isn't doing as well, or that is taking away less of the organic visibility, and create that a landing page and have paid support that while you figure it out on the organic side. So again, there's a lot there that these teams working together can make a lot of good things happen. And that's it. So from there, does anyone have any questions?
Let's open up the floor.
Yeah, there's some good questions that came in. I just took a look at some of the questions that came in, and I think there's some great questions that came in. This first one, if you don't mind me just jumping in, okay, Nubik, is that okay? Yeah. Someone asked about thoughts on services that will suppress your paid search listings when your organic is number one. Rev models, percent fee for savings gained. And I think it's extremely important to think about that, and to do that in an automated fashion, because these paid branded terms, you could have that dominant number one organic position and be bidding on that branding term, and then you could maybe pause it. And then the very next day, your top competitor could be in there, and you might not catch it if you're doing it manually for a week. So it's extremely important to do that in an automated fashion, almost in a real-time fashion, so that you can flip in and out of say positive keyword, negative keyword lists. So I definitely wanted to add in on that. Pat probably has some thoughts around that as well.
Yeah, I think that's a cool idea. You know what I mean? Like, you definitely have to have both sides of the brain working there, right? You would have to make sure that a technology or two technologies were working with one another that have that information. And really, what is it? It's pretty basic information. It's ranking. It would just be adjusting bids, based on ranking. And from that standpoint, I'd be interested, because if you could definitely automate it, like, it would have to be automated. Like, you wouldn't want to be doing something like that manually. But it would be interesting to see a product or a feature in a product that would bid down when you reach a certain threshold on a certain category of keywords, and then measure the impact of that. And if it was a positive impact, it would then permanently change that bid. Or if it had a negative impact over the course of 24 hours, I'm just making that time frame up, it would then bid back up if it was negative. So I think that would be something cool. I don't think there's anything out there that does that. Might be, but we may have just created a business. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we probably did. And I'm gonna ask Pat a quick question if it's okay. This is probably breaking all the rules of a webinar, but that's okay.
Breaking some laws.
So I mentioned L'Oreal earlier in the deck, and L'Oreal's a company of brands. They probably have 40, 50 different brands. How do you suggest in a complex world with say 50 brands, would the paid and organic team work together, just managing all those different brand nuances and that sort of thing? Do you have any thoughts on that, just off the cuff?
Just like how the two teams could work together on that many customers
in a togetherness fashion. Yes.
Yeah. From that standpoint, this is actually something that we deal with here at Conductor, quite often when you have like multiple business units underneath one holding company, right? And you're trying to get all these teams working together. And really what it comes down to is on the organic side, it comes down to how are you getting the information into their hands, right? And how are you doing it on a regular basis? And is it the right information? Those are really the three, questions that you have to ask yourself. From my standpoint, it's setting up regular reporting and sending it out weekly, because paid is, while organic is a slower moving beast, paid is daily, and so the most updated information. So on a weekly basis, sending, hey, here's what we're seeing for the domain that's important to you. And here's all the findings that we had. And you send a little blurb along with it. Here are the thoughts that we had and the trends that we're seeing. Let us know let us know if that helps you, moving forward. And typically, like what will happen is that'll at least get the conversation going. And then you set up regular cadences, right? So who's ever moving, there's a lot of different ways. Sometimes, people typically there's a group of people that hold a group of those accounts or a group of those brands, right? And then there's a person on the SEO side that meets with those groups, on a regular cadence. Maybe it's monthly, maybe it's quarterly, to review all of that. But really what it comes down to is communication, just better communication and getting the data into each other's hands, right? Even just seeing like the paid team or the organic team on reporting, that gets sent out to executives or gets sent out to customers. Like that helps so much, just so people are talking about it. And then like picking out a few little key things that come up and saying like, hey, listen, here's like the headline from this week, or here's the headline from this month, here's the headline from this quarter. Let's discuss that and let's get that into our plans. That can go a long way. And also, I don't know, taking people out for a happy hour, stuff like that, creating camaraderie, that always creates a little bit of togetherness, but that always helps.
It always helps.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more question. There's a really pointed one in the chat from Thomas. It's really interesting. He said, thoughts on organic listings getting more space on the SERP in the future, possibly from antitrust litigation. You got your pulse on the industry here?
So I have a very strong feeling on this. Regardless of what happens with the antitrust litigation, I think that will be probably held up in court forever. I don't think that will ever actually get anywhere real. But what I do think will happen is that I think that the SERPs, and I think Google is going to change the way they do paid and in the SERPs, right? Like I believe that in the future, they will start to disperse paid ads throughout the SERP so that it's more continuous. And so you don't have like the 3 or 4 ads on top or like the 2 ads on bottom and then the organic in between. I think you're going to start to see paid ads dispersed into the SERP and have them kind of mixed in with one another. Now, do I have any reason to believe that or any like data to do that? No. But what I do see all the time is Google messing with the SERPs and switching things around and putting things there, especially on mobile. And this is just something that I believe will happen in the future. And that would, in theory, give organic more space on the SERP because they wouldn't be pushed down. Because I think right now, a lot of people feel it's a little unfair on mobile because paid gets all the top listings on a phone and organic, you really got to scroll down to get there and desktop's getting close. But at the same time, like that's why I feel like it will become like a fairness thing. And Google, I think, will really like to Google would really like to, kind of test that out. But of course, it's one of their main source of income. So you don't want to poke the bear too much there. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a test sometime in the future. That's my last prophetic statement of the webinar.
Any thoughts here, Gary?
No, I think Pat pretty much covered everything I was thinking or was not thinking. So we're good there.
Awesome. Well, with that's a perfect place to close. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. And thank you, Gary and Pat, for sharing your thoughts and time with us all. I hope you all have the great rest of your day and almost Friday coming up. So catch you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, everybody.